Kiwi punk pioneers No Tag are playing their final shows this weekend at the Power Station, where Andrew Boiak is holding 2 nights of Punk It Up. This may also be the last Punk It Up. Why? Well, here's Andrew to tell you why, plus a whole lot more.
Jump, shout, shake it about.
So you're excited about Punk It Up, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Punk It Up has turned into its own monster.
Yep.
Right. And I think purely just because of what it is and the bands and the camaraderie that in both not just the bands but also the people that come along, and that is why we went to the Power Station.
This is going to be the last gigs for No Tag.
It's definitely the last gigs for No Tag. I think that when we did the first Punk It Up, and part of for many years previous to the first Punk It Up, I was always getting asked by New Zealand promoters, "Hey, what's the chance of No Tag forming?" Right? Even things like, "Hey, I've got this overseas band coming along. No Tag would be the perfect support. Are you guys interested?" So I would do my due diligence and reach out to the other guys, and I would generally always get a no. So one time I actually reached out to them and I actually got a yes, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Right? And that was the impetus to try and do the first Punk It Up, and so that's why No Tag played at that.
And what was that, like 5 years ago, right?
Yeah,
6 years ago.
6 years ago, 2016, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And so that was cool. And then they did the third one, which was the last real punk show at King's Arms and everything else like that. That was great.
Yep.
Right. So this time around, I was kind of like, "Well, you guys up for it?" Blah 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 blah. Because after we did the Zwines one, there was like some interest from them of, "Oh, it'd be cool if we could do the next one," right? So, but at the same time, they're also like, we've got to call it a day at some stage. We're getting old. We're we don't want to be that band that's forever reforming, right? We're not the Rolling Stones, and we don't want to be like the Rolling Stones, or the Who, and I think we've also had a unwritten rule with each other that we'll never perform if it wasn't the original lineup.
Gotcha.
So it's really kind of nice.
Yep.
That's why we're doing both nights. I can tell people that we're playing pretty early on the Friday night, so get your butt along there if you want to see us for the first night.
Right.
And then on the Saturday night we'll play about the normal space we would play in. So and the rehearsals so far have been excellent, right? Really.
Do you still have to rehearse?
We have one more rehearsal beforehand, plus anything we might do at sound check, but it's getting gelled into that sonicness. Obviously, I had all of those rehearsals back in February of last year before I had to pull the plug, right? And those guys have been really good too, because they've been rehearsing as the three of them while I'm overseas to
keep
up their chops and stuff. So
cool.
So yeah, more power to them. They've done an amazing job, and I really owe them a lot. So
And what are you excited? What other bands are you excited about that are taking part of this extravaganza?
I mean, first of all, I'd say all of them, because
of course,
most
that
of
goes
the
without saying.
The last Punk It Up, if not ever,
right?
Yep. I'm super keen on. There's a couple of bands. Let me run through the lineup. So Friday night, Shotgun the Couch. They were kind of like, I needed a small band. When I say small band, no, I needed a new band, but had something in them. And I saw a video of them under the bridge down in Tauranga. There was some dude that someone did a few months back, and they were pretty cool. And so it's like, good, great, that's perfect, right? And then I have Cootie Cuties, who I saw when I was back here in February, and I thought at what's the pub on K Road? I'm drawing a blank. The Thirsty Dog.
Oh, Thirsty Dog.
Saw them play at the Thirsty Dog, and I thought they were really cool.
Yep.
Right. So glad I've got them, and so they're going on. And then there's well, I'm kind of giving away the running order here, which I don't like to do, because I like to say, look, if
you can mix it up,
everybody, right, So then there's another band that we might have already talked about. Then No Class, right? Because No Class are a really interesting example of what a band that's more of the edge of genre than this middle of the road LAB Dave Dobany thing that is able to do things in New Zealand.
Yep.
So they all bounced over to Australia a while back. They were a band per se, but it was a while back. And I know that some of them, you know, school there and all that kind of stuff. But they put out a few records on some punk labels over there, you know, and obviously they're going in and recording. They're doing the thing.
Yep.
But it's because they're in Melbourne that they've got gigs and they've got all that kind of stuff. If they were over here in Auckland, I don't know if they would get enough gigs. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
They've also only been back in New Zealand one time when they came over to play one of those Up the Punks festivals, I think they're called, down in Wellington. Right. So this is the first time that they've, first of all, it'll be my first time seeing them live, other than video. And I think the video is great. Right, but it's not the same thing because it's not in 3D. It's not the bottom end, unless you're playing it through a PA at home. Right, you don't get that bottom end and all that kind of stuff. Right, and they're all really decent keysers. So yeah, really looking forward to that. You know, Jamrag and Proud Scum are worth seeing every time because even if it's just for Jamrag's banter in between songs, because he's incredibly funny. You know, Mr. Sarcasm at the best, and he's very, very quick and smart. So, you know, and you know, I mean, I can listen to Rabbit and Suicide 2 until the cows come home, right? You know, no problems there, right? And the Plague. I have not seen the Plague in their format that they did, because they also were going to play it in February, and then they ended up doing it for their own gig they did, right? And then they were supposed to be doing Others Way when Omicron first
right.
And that got cancelled.
Yeah.
So that's why they're kind of keen to do it here, right? So that's cool. And Bank Robbers is fun because, you know, to me it's like Bank Robbers now. I've got a different drummer, and I've got Chris Orange from the Tearaways is playing bass.
Right.
And we had a rehearsal last night, and it was just easy. You know, I mean, it's covers. It's
right.
You know, I do like to try and get as close as possible to the actual cover, but you know, right. So anyway, so Saturday night, Tigers. Never seen them live. First ever Maori punk band.
Right.
I even know. I think it was Tim out of you know, Blam 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 the Plague, who was very keen on seeing them. Right. And so I think there's like some people from way back in the day that remember them. I was not there way back in the day, so I've never seen them, but everyone said, oh yeah, they're great, you know. So cool. Definitely looking forward to Tigers. What else have we got? Memory Foam, right?
Yep.
Which I'm really keen on seeing based on their videos on YouTube, but again, never seen them live, so I'm totally keen on that. Bludgers are always good for a rock and roll thing. The Johnnies,
there you go.
Sit Down in Front are a great band because
I love those guys.
Here's some kids who are dropping some really nice recordings. I mean, if you listen to the songs, the singles they released, the album, whatever, right?
Yep.
That whoever's doing their recording or whoever's doing their stuff is great. But let's put something in front of that, Marty, which I think is so important to everything you hear in all genres of music, is if the players aren't good enough in the first place, you can't polish a turd. You're never going to get anything good, right? You know, songwriting, playing, blah, 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 blah. And these guys have that, right? And they have a bit of, you know, the fact that Corey's in a wheelchair, but he's still kicking butt, right? You know, and so on. Yeah, and then Bank Robbers closing up Saturday night, you know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we've got our normal, and this is where the other thing about Punk It Up, and I think this also relates to how it's become its own monster, is that it's not just a bunch of bands on stage. You know, we've got actual DJs playing punk rock in between.
Actual DJs playing actual punk records.
Yeah, yes, exactly. While we're, you know, rare 7 inches people, right? You know, right?
Not that rare.
I've got a higher security for the DJs, so that but this 7 inches worth more than the guitar I'm playing.
Well, that's the thing. But, I have a few 7 inches myself that I've been putting into Discogs, and the stuff that's hot now is all the punk stuff. they're all
Yeah.
going for outrageous amounts of money. It's insane.
Yeah,
You know,
no, exactly. Well,
$500-600 for a 7-inch.
Yeah, well, the band No Tag, we had an offer from a New York reissue label back in just before Punk It Up one
Yep.
to re-release the EP, which we own the rights to because Propeller
Yep.
folded and many years onwards, so they revert back to us. And one of the reasons I was happy to release it, obviously they gave us a licensing fee and so on, which was great.
Yep.
As I think Mark, the bass player, said, "Holy shit! 30 years later, we finally get paid for it." Right?
I know, that's pretty much how it's working.
That was more to try and dilute that Discogs Trade Me thing, because the original pressing of our first EP is going for something silly like $500. And it's
Yep.
are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Right? It was like $9.99 back when it came out, or $5.99 even probably, right? So
Yep.
yeah, go figure. That's a bit more than the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
So even compound rate of inflation.
Yep.
But like I say, yeah, going back to the whole thing, we've got the DJs between the bands. We've got, some info booths, like the Music Works, I think it's called, which is the mental health thing for musicians and stuff like that. There's obviously a bunch of merch.
Obviously.
In fact, I will be selling a few of those No Tag represses I brought over with me.
Okay.
And obviously the new Skin Effect 10-inch. But and then we got an after party upstairs for a couple of hours. People can carry on partying a little bit, and we got playing rare 7 inches, blah 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 blah. Right. So to me, it's like, this is the thing. Punk It Up is an event. I don't like calling it a gig because it's an event, because it is not just a bunch of bands on stage. That's obviously the prime piece of why people are paying money, or I hope they pay money to instead of hassling me for guest list. You
got to get a lot of that, I reckon.
Come along, but there's all these extra bits that make it into a thing, right? It's like I try and have a projection on a wall of photos of New Zealand punk bands from back in the day, and all these kind of things, which to me just makes it that little bit extra. And that's why I'm quite a believer in, when a punter buys a ticket, they've entered into a contract with me, or me, I guess, as the promoter, for me to provide them with that value, that dollar value of entertainment. That's how it works, right? So I like to be able to provide that as best I can. So
cool. So you're the promoter, you're the band, you got two bands, that's right.
No Tag and Bank Robbers.
You've done quite a bit over the years in the rock and roll business. So tell us a little bit about some of the other things that we may not be so familiar with. You're working with, says stage manager and guitar tech and all that stuff.
All right. So kind of first, I guess, when I grew up here, I was on BFM. I was one of the gang of Andrews, who took the station from just orientation to actually full-time, right? It wasn't actually a full-time license. It was actually a whole bunch of 28-day licenses in a row, but which the Broadcasting Tribunal kind of nudged us and said, there's no rule against this. And of course, the full-time station said, "Oh, you can't do that." And the Broadcasting Tribunal said, "Yeah, well, actually
can."
Right. Because the Broadcasting Tribunal in some of New Zealand's government's departments really do have the right idea and the right coming from the heart kind of thing, I think.
Yep.
And back then, the Broadcasting Tribunal looked at the broadcasting landscape and they said, it's only really college radio that's the farm system for broadcasters coming up.
Yep.
Right. You can't just rely on Radio New Zealand to be the trainee area, right? Do you know what I mean? Right. Not only that, at that time, the college stations were the only ones that were really playing New Zealand music that was not Dave Dobbin, LAB, whatever style.
Yep.
So they were very staunch about that, the Broadcasting Tribunal. So that's why they kind of helped us get it together. But anyway, so I did that. that did lead me to go end up in commercial radio for a short while, which was fun because there I was with some kind of weird hair, playing with no tag, but telling everybody it was going to be a wonderful day, and here's the new one from Madonna.
Right.
And I did have the occasional argument with people about, you're selling out, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sorry, mate, I don't know what you do for a day job, but this pays the rent, right?
Right.
You know?
Yep.
So Mark Sullivan, No Tag had finished up, and Mark Sullivan, the bass player, went to England for a couple of years, and he came back and he said, look, guys, if we want to make a go of this, we really need to move to London. London, we need to move out of the country, but London obviously is better than, say, Sydney for us, right? In the kind of music we're doing, blah, 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 blah. So we all saved up our bucks and reformed as No Tag, did a few more gigs, including the support for the Dead Kennedys, and then buggered off overseas. And then on the way, myself, Carl, the drummer, and Carl and Paul's brother, Mark, or Blaze, as his nickname was, we sang on Bedtime for Democracy on the Dead Kennedys record on the way over. So,
right.
So then in London, we really didn't know what we were doing, to be honest. You can turn up and hope for the best, but we didn't really, we didn't have a manager. We didn't have any kind of ins with any record labels, indie or major, just didn't matter really.
Right.
And so we rehearsed religiously once a week, and we would get a gig on a Tuesday at Dingwalls or this, that, and whatever, once every 2 or 3 months. And that kind of kept us going. But I think we kind of petered out just through that, what are we doing? Where are we going? We didn't really record anything, even though we wrote a lot of new songs, of which one of them at least is being done at Punk It Up. So, and other songs that have never been released, but have actually, were written after, say, the EP and the album. Which is interesting because I think now that the New Zealand government, and when I say the New Zealand government, I'm talking about the New Zealand On Airs and New Zealand Music Commissions and so on, which are obviously independent bodies that make their own decision, but it's money comes from somewhere, and it's generally the government, blah, blah, blah. It's your taxes, folks, right? Being used, what I believe, in the right manner, right? And there was none of that back then, right? And even for the chills and the cleans and that kind of stuff, they were doing it with at least some backing of the record label Flying Nun and so on. But by the time we had jumped, Propeller had kind of ceased to be and so on. And not that Propeller had money anyway. So,
right.
So even then, the cleans and the chills at that time in the late 80s, they were forging the way on their own as well. So right. So in hindsight, we did the right thing by getting there, but we had no idea what we were doing. We did play gigs and we got out and about, and yes, we had that. Managed to sing on the Dead Kennedys record on the way across. So
there you go. That's
wasn't the end of the world.
Yep.
But like I say, we fizzled out. We didn't break up per se. That's one of the things I can quite proudly say about No Tag is we've never broken up.
Gotcha.
And we're just going to retire after the end of this Punk It Up, right? Right. And I was involved in the independent music industry, working for Rough Trade Distribution, and they then transferred me over to America to run their operations. I was in the kind of operations, warehousing, accounts, whatever kind of thing. And then they consequently went bankrupt, right? Which of course in the end was really funny because they weren't actually bankrupt. It's just they couldn't go into the bank in England and say, hey, lend us $1 million or £1 million based on the Smiths back catalogue. Right. The rights to the, So anyway, so then I did a little bit of work cleaning up that, and then I was just doing temp retail work or whatever just to keep me going. Friend of mine, New Zealand guy. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, had a roommate who was tour managing, and she ended up needing a guitar tech, and she's like, well, you know how to intonate a guitar? And I'm like, yeah. And you know how to kind of troubleshoot an amp? And I'm like, yeah, right. You know,
Yeah,
she's
right.
like, okay, well, I'm flying you out to Chicago today. Right? Okay.
All right. Why not?
Yeah, why not? And from that, I kind of fell into doing My Bloody Valentine with Levi Tarkovsky was the front of house, and they needed a guitar tech, but they also needed a guitar tech who had a US license to drive the extremely large Ryder truck. So I did that, right? And that was pretty cool. And I love to say that front of house was a Kiwi. Kevin Shields' guitar tech was a Kiwi, and also the lights and graphics person was James from the Exploding Budgies from years ago, was also doing the graphics. So half of the crew for that Loveless tour in the early 90s in the USA was Kiwis. So go figure, right? Yeah. So I did that. That led to doing the Chills for the Soft Bomb tour. So I saw everything fall apart gloriously. But it was cool. And Martin and I go way back anyway. And then I did PJ Harvey when she was on their way to record the album Rid of Me with Steve Albini. Right. This was kind of them getting a live thing in and you know, rehearsing the songs, playing with the songs, whatever, as they went there. So that was cool. Yeah. And all of these tours, there's a story or two from each one of them, you know, and we won't go into it now, but the only thing was that I kind of, after the PJ Harvey, I'm kind of like, well, I was still playing with bands. I mean, one thing I've done all the way through is I've always had a band. Right. You know, different to potentially some of the other folks that I play with, where they kind of keep up, or they just put their thing away, and it's 10 years later they pull it out of mothballs. Right. I've played in a band all the way through. Right. You know, to me, music therapy is very important to my psyche, and you know, I always say to people, if I did not have the ability to be able to go out and play some power chords with a Les Paul and a Marshall, I would be on the FBI's most wanted list. Right. Gotcha. You know? And I think that's really true. Right. It's such a great way to lose aggression, lose depression, lose anger, lose whatever is music. Music soothes the savage beast. Yes, absolutely. Right. You know, so I came off the PJ Harvey tour, and I'm like, you know, it's really hard to have your own band and say to the guys, hey guys, I'm going away for 5 weeks. Keep up the momentum. Right. Because you're kind of killing it. Right. And there's the whole being on the road for 5 weeks, living out of a suitcase can be a bit smelly or annoying. Right. So I said to myself, you know, I'm going to back off on this. And I managed to get a job back in a dance music distributor, because dance music was kind of coming up then. Both the house and drum and bass and all that kind of stuff was coming up in that early 90s kind of, or mid 90s by then kind of stage. And then I got a call for a songwriters showcase where it was Guy Clark, Joe Ely, Alan Toussaint, and Michelle Schott. Nice. And they'd started their first gig in LA, and the second one was coming up that night in San Francisco. And Michelle Schott had said, where's the stage guy? Because they had a tour manager and a front of house, but they didn't have a stage manager, stage guy, right? And she threw a hissy fit, right? And said, you know, we need a stage guy. So they called me, and I was like, I don't want to do this, so I'm going to tell them some really silly number of how much they have to pay me. So I did, and they said, fine, see you at Slim's tonight. That'll learn you. Yeah, exactly, right? You know, right? Obviously the number wasn't that stupid enough, but so I went on this really cool tour, and I became extremely good friends with Guy Clark. Cool. Who to me is one of the best songwriters. And I think a lot of people don't know that. And I think also that it's really important for me as a songwriter, for me as just a general, again, that whole music therapy, it's not just me playing to it, it's listening to it as well, right? And I think that I subscribe to what Robbie Shakespeare once said, is that all music is good. You learn from the good and you learn from the bad. Right. But I think that it's really important that people do listen to other genres, because there are ideas you can get there that you can then translate back into your own playing, songwriting, whatever. And I think Guy Clark is an amazing American songwriter. You know, I don't think he's folk. I don't think he's country. I think he's a bit of that. He's a bit of everything, right?
Yep.
And I think people haven't seen it. And there's that great documentary. Have you seen the Without Getting Killed or Caught, which is a new movie that was just made about Guy Clark?
No, I have to check it out.
Oh, you should check it out. Yes. Yeah, Without Getting Killed or Caught.
I'm jotting it down now.
Yeah, I think it's available via your Netflixy.
I can find it, I'm
right?
sure.
And I'm sure you can stream it.
Yeah,
but it's phenomenal,
cool.
right?
Yep.
And I did not know, but I learned, you know, there's that Townes Van Zandt type.
Oh yeah,
and
there you go.
And all these really amazing songwriters from back in the day. And personally, I hate new country. I could, right? You know, right? You know, Garth Brooks, back off, right? But this is the real stuff,
right? Gotcha.
You know,
yep.
As you know, so there was that. There was Joe Ely, who supported the Clash when they first came to the US. So I heard some good, you know, behind the scenes Clash stories. And then there's Alan Toussaint, for God's sakes, who's like the, you know, he would wear a suit every day. Right?
Well, I got a great Alan Toussaint story. The first and only time I went to New Orleans is flying from New Zealand, and it was San Francisco and then New Orleans, and it was like 5 a.m. on a Monday morning when the flight came into New Orleans. And I'm coming through the airport and just there's nobody around. It's 5 a.m. except for this one very well-dressed gentleman coming towards me going through the, I was like, could that possibly, that was Alan Toussaint. It was like the first guy I saw in New Orleans. It was amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing was most of his gigs, he would just fly to them, pick up a car, driven to the gig, play his thing, drive back, go home, right? So this was the first time he'd been on a tour bus, for God's sakes. And we even had Spinal Tap FedExed into us to where the bus was that day, like, you know, we timed it so that we actually had, and he watched Spinal Tap. I was with Alan Toussaint the first time he saw Spinal Tap.
But was he wearing he was wearing the suit and tie?
Oh yeah, no, he's always, but he pissed himself laughing.
I know.
Right? And he knew what was going on, you know, all the scenarios and so on. So that was really cool. And he's just, oh my God, what a phenomenal piano player, songwriter, whatever. And it's things like this that I did not know. Really, I did not know much of Alan Toussaint's music. Right. Until I'd done this tour. And then you look back on it and say, well, my God, he created a genre.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
You knew it, you just didn't know it.
Yeah. And then you find out that he wrote Lady Marmalade and Southern Nights by Glenn Campbell. And that dude drives around New Orleans and his roller, the plates are Mr. Piano, and his Harley, the plates are Mr. Music, right? You know what I mean? It's like,
there you go.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. But anyway, so I did that, and then I got back, and then got back into the carrying on, late 90s, dance music distribution. I moved from distribution to running a deep house label, a Dub Tribes label. But at the same time, we had a crew, a drum and bass crew in San Francisco, and I had kind of like, I'd always said, you know, dance music is just disco. But then I heard some drum and bass, and I'm like, you know what? This is like kind of the punk rock of dance music, right?
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? It's got extra edge. It's got minor keys. It's that kind of thing. And so I kind of got into that. But we had this crew and the drum and bass scene at the time was very, if it ain't from England, it's crap. Right.
Yeah.
And we had these kids that were making their own stuff that was pretty darn good, but they had no way of getting it out, because if they'd sent a demo to the millions of English labels at the time, the English labels would have followed that. It's American. Forget about it. So because my wife Kathy and I had been in music and still were in the case of me, and we had a little bit of extra money, we went and we started a label called Green Recordings. And we did Green Label, and we put out 13 tracks overall over about a 3 or 4 year period. And it included Caliber from Ireland, right, who was on Groove Rider's label, but he'd given Groove Rider a whole album's worth of stuff, but Groove Rival was holding back on it. So he was kind of pissed off. So he gave us an extra track just to get it out. So I can even say that my label put out the first ever Caliber record, right? And we sold quite a few of some, 1 or 2 we had to repress, but others we overpressed. And, that's the nature of the game of a record label. But it also gave me gave us a business that allows me to invoice people. It also allows me for the US tax man to take a gig like this. And as long as I'm declaring what I'm making, I can then take off certain amounts of my plane flight and certain
definitely.
And so if you ever see me buy anything off you, I'm definitely going to ask for a receipt.
Good idea. Fair enough.
So
I have nothing to sell.
Well, you do. You have 13th floor. 13th floor is great, but you're not
I
necessarily.
should be selling something, but there you go. That's another story.
Yes. You have a little like side e-commerce for extremely rare 7-inches, right?
But I can't sell them. That's the problem.
Yes, no, that's true too. Yes.
I have.
So I always wonder about that. Is like, is the price? Does the price go up because people just can't bring themselves to sell it? So that's the supply and demand. There's really
it used to be that the old doo-wop records
out there. It's just the people don't want to sell it. So
it used to be the old doo-wop records from the 50s where the hardcore collectors were all after them, but not anymore because most of those people are gone now. They're no longer with us, and the people who are into records don't know who the Flamingos and the harp tones
and
were.
the Alan Toussaint, because he was doo-wop, right?
So now it's all the punk stuff is very collectible. So there you go.
And that's for sure. And it still makes me laugh. Is like, do I get happy and in that the original issue of the No Tag EP is worth so much, or do I get sad because I ain't seeing any of it? Right.
Yep.
These are things. I mean, it's just, life is life, and you roll through it, and you take the best from it when you can. So, so.
All right. Well, hopefully you'll make a few bucks on Punk It Up.
Again, it's not my, I have a real day job, so that pays my bills. It would be nice to get some money for all of the time I put into it, because I seriously must put over 100 to 200 hours in, although it's over like a kind of 6 to 10 month period running up to it. But right now, as I said, I'm kind of like, maybe working in the morning for my job over there, and then it's like this, and I've got a DJ gig here, and I've got this, and it right now, I mean, that's why I'm, hey, Barocca people, right?
Yep. Unfortunately,
that's why I'm just being, wearing a mask everywhere, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Because I'm completely full. But personally, if I'm not completely full, I'm bored, and I hate boredom more than I hate exhaustion. If you want to call it that, right? Do you know what I mean? Right. So, and I'm not getting too exhausted as long as I plan it out and I'm careful about it, and I drink my Barocca, and I take vitamin C's and wear a mask wherever I am in public, and so on. It's fine, right? So I enjoy it. I definitely
excellent. Well, I've enjoyed this. This has been fun. So can't wait to go see you
Can we
guys.
talk a little bit about the Skin Effect record? Is that cool?
Sure. Tell me all about it.
Yeah. So more recently with the label, the drum and bass label. I've been putting out punk stuff. I did not call it Green Label. I called it Green Recordings, which is the actual official name of the
company.
The company in as far as the tax man's concerned. So I started. I had Skin Effect with a different name, slightly different players, and so on going on. And I was asked to play bass just as a favor in this little 3-piece street punk band called Black Spots, right? And that favor ended up being a long-term favor, and I became part of the band. And the drummer guy decided to stay as well. And so we ended up recording a whole album that we put out on Green Recordings. And then we did a single slightly later called Not My President, which was around about the time, that was about 4 years ago now, because it was exactly the time of the midterms. In fact, I actually did the release party on the Tuesday of the midterms.
Good on you.
And that was a little 4-song 7-inch. And then Dean Martelli from the Terraways and Rebel Truce had found the tapes of their recordings they'd done at Harlequin Studio of that Man Inside session and another one they did. So we shoved all that on a 7-inch and put that, which is good because Man Inside only ever came out on the Class of 81 compilation. It was never released any other way, shape, or form.
Right.
So we released that as the Rebel Truth Lost tapes as a 7-inch. And then now we've got up to Skin Effect has kind of finally got itself together. And we've released a colored vinyl 10-inch because I thought I might as well go full whack on the collector nerd factor, right? You know.
Although I think the black vinyls these days are more collectible than the colored because there's so much colored vinyl out there.
That's true. That's true. I mean, you know, we recorded this, Marty, on the weekend. So we laid down all the tracks, including vocals, on the weekend before lockdown.
Okay.
Before COVID started, basically.
Right.
And our lockdown in San Francisco was either exactly the same or a week before New Zealand's one, right?
Okay. Yep.
Okay? We then spent about a year using some very smart technology with low latency on internet sending the audio. So we were able to then view the Pro Tools interface whilst listening to it. And we weren't like, oh, right there. And our guy was like, huh? Right. You know, it was, so we had that. And then we also had, so that was on, the Pro Tools was on Skype. And then on another computer, we'd have Zoom. All of us chatting away about, you know, oh, we need more guitar. No, turn down the guitar, or can you turn this bit up, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. And we had a really great engineer that did it, but it took us about a year to do it via the internet, right?
Yep.
Fine. So I get it mastered. I decide that I'm going to get my mastering guy to cut the lacquer because I didn't really trust the 9-to-5 guy at the pressing plant to just bash it out.
Right.
So we did that, and then it took a while to get the test pressings back because the major labels had thrown almost all of their back catalog, right, at the world's vinyl production output, right? Then there were like global problems with vinyl, supply chain problems with vinyl, especially the colored.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, my understanding is it's Adele's fault.
She
put an album out all on vinyl.
I mean, there's a million. It's really just vinyl became a thing. After not being a thing. And the world's vinyl output. Which
there's like 2 pressing plants on the plant.
Suddenly got slammed, right? And so the output just couldn't match the demand, right? On top of that, you've just got COVID and lockdowns and people calling in sick and all that kind of stuff anyway, right? And then this supply chain thing, which also, Marty, included cardboard for the jackets. Apparently,
I didn't know that.
Amazon, Walmart, Target, and so on had cornered the world's cardboard market to make sure they had enough boxes to ship for Christmas of 2021.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one. That's a good one. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, they just keep going. So anyway, so we get the test pressings. They sound fantastic, right? Okay, you know, yes, I paid, you know, probably about $1,000 more than I would have overall for the, you know, for the pressing, just to make sure I had my guy doing it to have that carry on of that year of pain of having to do it over the internet. I might as well at least get the result at the other end. And they sounded great. And normally, Marty, once you've signed off on the test pressings, you've already got the artwork. It's already signed off for the right formats. Blah 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 blah. It's about a 2 to 3 month lead time before you get the finished product in your hands. This one was 9 months.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, it must have driven you crazy.
Oh yeah, right. You know, and then of course it arrives on my doorstep 1 week before I'm leaving for New Zealand. So I've kind of done a soft launch. Flying out, shipped a few in and a few extras for me. So that was cool. They've got it. You know, I've got to do the rounds of some of the other stores, the Real Groovies and the Southbounds and so on. And we'll have it for sale at the
great. Okay. At the Punk It Up
gig and all that kind of stuff. But I'm pretty happy with it. It's 4 pretty cool tracks. yeah, the recording's great. Obviously the mastering and the, actually concentrating on the vinyl thing is good. And it's available via the iTunes and the Spotify's and all that as well. If you want to do the bleepy bloop thing, digital that the kids do nowadays. So yeah. And it's
The
a
old
10-inch
bleepy bloop
vinyl.
thing.
If you're just a vinyl geek, it's a 10-inch colored vinyl. Don't worry about the music. So,
No. All right. Very good. Well, that sums it all up then, doesn't it?
yeah. And now you've got far too much of me ranting on to have to go back.
Never too much. Never too much. No, I'm all psyched
that's
up
nice
now.
of you. Yes.
I'm
No,
gonna
I
buy
always
some
enjoy
records.
having-
I'm going to go to the power station.
Absolutely love chatting with you, Marty. For
Yeah,
sure.
my pleasure. Believe me. So,
Yeah.
we'll see
Yeah,
you.
your knowledge is phenomenal. We have this like kind of American tie-up, where we can say Happy Juneteenth and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Right. I find it quite interesting that Juneteenth, this is the first Juneteenth for America, and this week is also the first Matariki.
That's
New
right.
Zealand.
That's a good observation. Yeah, I like it. It's synchronicity.
Absolutely, right. I mean, it would be nice if the whole world came together and loved each other a bit and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we got a ways to go before that's happening, but we're doing our best. All righty.
That's true. As long as each individual is doing it, then it'll happen.
Yep.
So,
Fantastic. All right.
all right, Marty.
Rock and roll. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I'll see you on the Friday.
You will.